Hello, and welcome to Under 1000. My name's Thomas Flower, and each episode I'll read you a piece of super short fiction. All of the stories are 1000 words or less. Today, I'll be reading Julia's Choice. Julia knew her story was important, but was it that important? The decision with what to do with the piece she had just finished writing was now staring her in the face. She'd been working on it for months, researching, conducting interviews, fact-checking, writing it up, and editing it infinitely down into the journalistic gem now sitting on her laptop. But could she really justify putting it on the internet? It was a story people needed to see, admittedly. The piece was about the ways in which the new United Bank had been exploiting loopholes in the law to get away with underpaying its workers and artificially inflating its stock prices. She was certain that if the right people read the story, it could make waves, hopefully enough to cause a serious backlash and force a change of policy by the company. Still, if she posted this story today, what might that mean she was unable to post in the future? Of course, there were always the local and national newspapers, still struggling on even now. Julia had already submitted her story to several of them, but with both the cost of paper being so high and the readership being so low, it was difficult to know whether she would be given the precious column inches available, and if she was, whether anyone would even read it. Admittedly, self-publishing online was unlikely to garner much attention normally anyway, but Julia had built up a decent following over the years, making her hopeful that once available, the story would spread far and wide, shared both online and by word of mouth by the influential people she knew would take an interest in her work. It was certainly the best route to get this news the attention she thought it deserved, but could she really justify the upload, to herself or to anyone else? Bandwidth was so limited these days, and restrictions were increasing year on year. The environmental costs of server usage were just too high, what with the power and parts which went into hosting everything online. A few years ago, it was suggested that internet usage must be rationed out, just like any other finite resource, and although the idea had been unpopular, it was difficult for many to argue against the necessity. Now, every choice on what to upload had become an impossibly difficult one, which Julia hated having to make. If she published the piece, she would have to sacrifice almost a third of her yearly online usage. Uploading cost far more than simply viewing content online, and so choosing to be one of the few who still made something to be placed on the internet was an unenviable position. Not only would she be potentially unable to share another story later in the year, but she would also be limiting the time she could spend online working on other projects and investigations that she knew held just as much importance. Still, time was of the essence here. If she waited too long, the story would miss its timing. The bank had already begun to notice the attention she was placing on them, and even now must be developing a corporate PR strategy to preemptively deflect the oncoming criticism. If she was going to do this, it would need to be now, while the public was still unaware and had not been fed the marketing materials designed to inoculate them against their own outrage. But was it worth it? What if another more important story caught her eye just weeks from now? She would know that she had made the wrong choice, backing herself into a corner where she was unable to do justice to some more important political news. Of course, internet usage isn't really what it used to be, she reasoned to herself, trying to see if she could create an acceptable excuse for choosing to leave the story on her hard drive. With the increasing restrictions, people barely spend any time online these days. It's perfectly possible I might upload this and then have nobody see it, especially if it doesn't capture the public interest like I hope it will. Her thinking was not wrong, admittedly, and yet she still found it difficult to live with the idea of putting so much care and attention into this story without putting it in the one place where it could be quickly and easily accessed by anyone across the globe. The story would still be out there without it, true, but there was no possible way it could have the same reach without some kind of miracle. I can always upload and not submit, Julia reasoned, trying to draw herself out. Maybe if I do that, I'll see how I feel. She copied the text and pictures from her own document to the online form, checking carefully as she did for any last-minute typos and errors. A few moments later, she was sitting with the piece ready to go, and yet she was still no further towards knowing what she wanted to do. What if she wasn't able to report on another story? What if she had to curtail her future research, cutting it short for lack of available internet usage? What if she had to delay releasing a story for so long that there was barely any point in releasing it at all? What if? Julia's hand hovered over the submit button. She wanted to push down, clicking it and ending this dilemma, but it was as though her own doubts and worries were pulling her fingers back. A crystal ball would be very useful now, she thought sarcastically to herself. Shutting her eyes so she couldn't see the choice she was making, she placed her finger directly on the mouse's button and clicked quickly and impulsively. Silently, the article uploaded, and her allowance meter fell dramatically. Thank you for listening to Under 1000. I'm your host, Thomas Flower. To follow the show online, look for Under 1000 Pod on Twitter or Facebook. If you'd like to support the show on Patreon, go to patreon.com/under1000pod, where you can sign up for bonus content and a thank you to be read during these credits. The theme music is an instrumental version of In Between Days by Nick Tate and the Sharks. To hear the full song and more from the same EP, go to Nick Tate, NICTATE, and thesharks.bandcamp.com, or search for them on your favourite streaming platform. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and that you'll join me again next time for some more super short fiction.